Sorry, I can't be too loud for this video. I really, really don't want to wake these guys. They're sleeping. Okay, so shh on the names I'm about to mention. We don't want to be too obvious here. We don't want to let everybody know who we're targeting, but these guys are going way too late in the ADP in your draft. And if you get them where they're currently going, then you get a steal with heavy league winning upside if they hit. So these are some names I really want to keep to myself, but I'm going to share them with you, and hopefully we don't wake them up. We don't want their ADPs to go up too much. But there are a few players I've mentioned that are definitely sleeping, definitely going a little too late that I would reach on, that I have mentioned in previous videos. A perfect example is Darrell Henderson. He's around running back 40 right now. I think he's definitely a top 30 running back, but I expect his ADP to climb given Cam Akers just got hurt. He got hurt too. They're going to keep both of them out of practice, but I think Henderson is way too cheap, and he's more of a 9th round pick than a 10th or 11th round pick where you can get him right now. Henderson is definitely a name to know, but I brought him up in another video. I think you should reach on him the most. But some obvious names here are those handcuffs that have league winning upside if the starter were to go down. So Alexander Mattison is a name we've known for a while now. Another player like that would be Isaiah Spiller in LA, backing up Austin Eckler. You know that if the starter goes down in either Minnesota or Los Angeles, their backup, even if it's a rookie like Spiller, is going to have amazing top 10 fantasy value. So definitely reach on these players, but those are obvious names, and that's why I want to give you some less obvious players. But in that grouping, in that must-draft handcuff tier of like round 11, like right outside the top 120, we got Henderson, Mattison, Spiller, and Rachaad White. And I think another player who's being really undervalued is Rachaad White. He's definitely a must-draft handcuff if you have Leonard Fournette, but even if you don't, I think you should take a shot on Rachaad White. He was a player I was really, really excited about coming into the draft. I had him as my number 3 running back prospect. I was really, really high on Rachaad White, and this play on his highlight reel is really the only thing you need to know about his talent. The Trojans cannot bring this guy down. He is really, really talented. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have drafted very well over the last several years. I think targeting him in the 3rd round as their next running back was a very, very wise decision, and he's going to be relevant in his rookie season. I think he's going to have more weekly value than Alexander Mattison. You're going to know when to start him, and Isaiah Spiller is going to ride the bench a lot more than you want. So don't reach on Spiller or Mattison if Rachaad White is still on the board. I think he's the most valuable of those elite upside handcuffs other than Darrell Henderson, because in Tampa Bay, they may have given Leonard Fournette a new contract this offseason, 3 years, $21 million. But they don't want him to get hurt. That's what messed them up last year, a lot of injuries to this franchise. And in the playoffs, that's where they need Leonard Fournette healthy. So they're not going to push it like they did late last season. He ended up going down because of it. Starting in week 12 at Indianapolis, Leonard Fournette went off with 4 touchdowns, and he played on 81% of snaps. He played on 87% the next week, and then 80% the following week. They leaned on Fournette heavy because before that, he almost never played more than 65% of snaps. But in the 4th game, when he was trending towards another 80% snap share, he got hurt and he missed the rest of the season. He didn't come back until that playoff game against the Rams. I do think workload is something they want to manage with Leonard Fournette. So 60 to 65% is the sweet spot for Leonard Fournette, and that opens up maybe 40% of snaps for Rachaad White. I think he needs to step up because the Buccaneers have had a lot of injuries so far in camp. The rookie is one of the healthiest players on their roster. If they lean on him and continue to win games, I think their defense is really poised to show up. Then the Buccaneers will make it to the playoffs healthier than last season, and they'll have a better chance to win a Super Bowl. So I expect them to lean a little bit more on Rachaad White than his ADP gives him credit for, and he's not just an elite handcuff. He will have weekly value, and in good matchups, I think he has a good shot to get in the end zone. Because if you forgot, just 2 years ago when Leonard Fournette was on the roster, Ronald Jones went off. He had 220 touches that year for 1,143 total yards from scrimmage, and most importantly, Ronald Jones scored 8 touchdowns in this offense. Last year he scored 4, so maybe he just meets in the middle. Rachaad White does this season for like 6, but even that is going to be very valuable because he's going as running back 42 right now, and that is a steal. Rachaad White is an excellent sleeper, and I absolutely love him. He's one of the best handcuffs you can draft. Even if you don't have Fournette, he's very valuable, especially as your 4th or 5th running back on your team. Another player who is going a few spots behind him in the ADP, running back 45, is, in my opinion, a lot more consistently valuable. And I'm talking about Kenny Gainwell, a player might have been too loud on that one. Kenny Gainwell of the Philadelphia Eagles. I brought up his name in a previous video as well, but it was the do not draft video, and I was talking about Miles Sanders. I only hinted at Kenny Gainwell's upside briefly, but the reports from camp are he is going to be the most fantasy relevant back because he's penciled in for those high leverage snaps on 3rd down, the 2-minute drill, and on the goal line. So Kenny Gainwell is getting all of the valuable touches in this backfield, and Miles Sanders is definitely not the player you want to draft. So Kenny Gainwell is going to step up in year 2. He's going to have an even larger workload, but last year as a rookie, he was definitely hit or miss. He was rather volatile, with some games a little bit more usage and then some games almost absolutely nothing. So let's take a look at Kenny Gainwell's game log from last season and isolate the matchups where he got at least 10 touches, because I think that's what you can expect this season, at least 10 touches per game. If you combine his rush attempts and targets, every game that exceeds 10 are the ones that I want to look at. And there were 6 games in the regular season out of the 16 games that he played. And because this is still kind of a small sample size, I'm going to include that playoff matchup against Tampa Bay. So we have 7 games here. That's pretty decent. And it's really interesting what we see. In those 7 matchups, he only ran the ball 55 times, not exactly a ton. That's only 8 rushes per game. But he was very effective, ran for 4.6 yards per carry, and put up 253 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. That's really nice, but his work in the receiving game is where I'm even more excited. In those 7 games, 36 targets, 26 receptions, 196 receiving yards, and another 2 touchdowns. That's 6 total touchdowns in this 7-game sample size. As long as Kenny Gainwell gets at least 10 touches, then he almost always finds the end zone. That is gold in fantasy football, and he's going as running back 45. That's crazy low. When you put these stats together, the average is 13.4 half PPR points per game. That's a top 20 running back going outside the top 45. Obviously, he's not going to hit every single week. He is a bit touchdown dependent, but when he has a good matchup, when you know to trust him, Kenny Gainwell needs to be in your lineup. I love his ADP. He is an absolute steal, and he's more valuable than Miles Sanders. If you get to the point in your draft where you're contemplating settling for Sanders, remember that Kenny Gainwell is still buried in the ADP, and you would rather take him than grab Sanders straight up. I am telling you, Kenny Gainwell has league-winning upside, and if Sanders ever goes down, he is going to be a top 20 running back immediately. Kenny Gainwell is the guy you want. This is a great run offense. They were number 1 in rushing last year. And Jalen Hurts kind of needs to prove that he can throw the ball. So I don't think he's going to score 10 rushing touchdowns this season. I think he may check it down a lot to Kenny Gainwell, especially in the red zone. And there's a very realistic path to 10 plus touchdowns this season for Kenny Gainwell. Lock it in. Kenny Gainwell needs to be in your lineup, and hopefully he stays asleep. But a player whose ADP is quickly rising, definitely on the verge of waking up, is Isaih Pacheco, the rookie in Kansas City. I mentioned how I thought Ronald Jones might have more fantasy value this year than CEH. But that was before I read up on this backfield. Isaih Pacheco is the guy you want. He is being compared to Kareem Hunt, and we know that CEH is not exactly the guy. So without a doubt, Pacheco is the number 2 running back in this backfield, and if he ever overtakes CEH or CEH ever gets hurt, then he has the chance to claim this job outright and never look back. If he's truly as good as Kareem Hunt was as a rookie, then you can expect a breakout season from Isaih Pacheco. Let's look back to Kareem Hunt's rookie season for the Chiefs with Alex Smith at quarterback. He put up 16.9 half PPR points per game and scored 11 touchdowns in those 16 games that rookie season. But obviously, this offense is more elite with Mahomes under center. Let's take a look at Kareem Hunt's sophomore season with Mahomes at quarterback, because it was even better from a per game standpoint. He did get cut that season. He only played 11 games, but damn, he was good. He averaged 19.8 fantasy points per game in half PPR that season. Definitely a top 5 running back. And he scored 14 touchdowns in 11 games. There's truly elite upside ripe for the taking in this backfield, but CEH has been very disappointing. In his rookie season, CEH was only able to score 13.2 fantasy points per game. He only scored 5 touchdowns in his 11-game rookie season. That was definitely a bit disappointing if you trusted CEH like I did his rookie year as a possible top 10 running back. But in his sophomore season last year, CEH was even worse. He only played 8 full healthy games. Definitely not a safe bet to stay healthy. But last year, CEH also took a dip in production, only 12.2 points per game. He's definitely not trending in the right direction. And although there's some reports that he was injured in camp last year, he was never fully healthy. I don't think he's ever going to be fully healthy. I really don't think he's set up to be a durable workhorse running back. And if they give him 17, 18 touches a game, eventually he's going to wear down. I do not trust CEH. And if I'm drafting anyone in this backfield, it's Isaih Pacheco. Right now he's running back 55 overall in the ADP, but I have him ranked inside my top 40 as running back 38. He is a must-draft handcuff for CEH, but you want him outright even if you don't have CEH. Pacheco has league-winning upside, and you need to reach on him. His ADP is quickly rising, and once we hit round 11, once you hit running back like 30, 32, 35, I mean, there's only 32 starters in the league. Why not take your favorite elite backup handcuff running back? Why the fuck not? If Pacheco hits, he would be a top 15 running back right away. That is the upside that he comes with, so why not take a shot on him in round 11 or 12 if you absolutely believe on him? But obviously he's going a little bit later. You can play the waiting game, but odds are somebody else snipes you. Now that I'm aware of Pacheco, I never actually get him because he hasn't been on my radar appropriately, and I've been forgetting to reach several rounds higher to get him. So don't forget about Pacheco. If Kenny Gainwell and Rachaad White are off the board, then grab Isaih Pacheco. But some running backs going even later that I think offer just as high upside. They would truly be top 15, top 10 running backs if the starter ever went down or if they were to claim the job for themselves. A rookie running back in Las Vegas that really piques my interest is Zamir White out of Georgia. He's young. He was drafted in the 4th round. He kind of has small hands. He's not much of a pass catcher, but damn, is he talented. He scored 11 touchdowns last year for Georgia, the team that won the national championship. He was a big part of the backfield, and I'm high on James Cook for the same reason. I trust Georgia running backs. Why not trust Zamir White? The fact that Josh Jacobs got those touches in the Hall of Fame game was a big red flag. No other legit starter played in the Hall of Fame game. Like Devontae Adams wasn't on the field, Darren Waller wasn't on the field, Derek Carr wasn't on the field, Hunter Renfrow wasn't on the field, but Josh Jacobs started the Hall of Fame game. That's not a good sign. I think there's a legit shot that Zamir White takes that job for himself by the end of the season and in the fantasy playoffs is a top 20 running back for you in fantasy. So some league winning upside with Zamir White. He's going well outside the top 50, and I love to grab him in like the 16th or 17th round of an underdog draft. He's really undervalued, and I think he could be the best running back in this backfield. Josh McDaniels comes from the New England Patriots. You know that they like to use a lot of running backs, run it a ton, and if they don't trust Jacobs, I mean, he's part of the Gruden, Mike Mayock organization, then why not try to phase him out and see what this rookie can do? Reports from camp are that Amir Abdullah is going to play the James White role, and that means Josh Jacobs is already losing favor. I think Zamir White will gain a lot of trust over the course of the season, and in December, he's going to be the player you want. Definitely some league-winning upside with Zamir White. So he's a sleeper I like a lot. I had him as my running back 5 draft prospect entering the draft, and I absolutely trust running backs who played for Georgia. Zamir White's going to be a good running back, either mid-season in 2022 or definitely next year in 2023 when Josh Jacobs comes off the books. So fingers crossed that Zamir White can hit this year, but ideally you'd be getting Gainwell, Rachaad White, or Isaih Pacheco above him. So he's more of a waiver wire target, but you never know. But I know some of you play in those really deep formats. You might need to draft him if you're in a big league. However, the 5th player I'm going to mention, the last name on this list for this video, is a running back in San Francisco that I think is undervalued in the draft. Tyrion Davis-Price was drafted in the 3rd round this season. However, last year the 3rd round pick Trey Sermon didn't really get involved at all. So there's a lot of names in this backfield, and Davis-Price feels a little bit more like a depth piece because they just can't stay healthy in this backfield. It's almost like a bad omen or something. Nobody really plays a full season as the 49ers starter. And if that happens, if Elijah Mitchell ever goes down, he's definitely the number 1 running back to start the season. It's definitely his job. But if he ever goes down, I think the number 2 is Jeff Wilson Jr. He didn't play any snaps in that preseason game against Green Bay. And at this point in the league, preseason is really just a test to prove that you're worthy of a roster spot. They know what they have in Jeff Wilson, and it's more of a sign that they trust him by holding him out of that preseason game. They don't want him to get hurt. So he is the number 2 in my opinion. He at least started camp with that job, and I don't think Trey Sermon has fully gained the trust of the coaching staff to be the number 2. I think he's the number 3, and Tyrion Davis-Price is actually the number 4. So the ADP is actually reversed when it comes to these backups. Davis-Price is going first off the board, followed by Trey Sermon, then followed by Jeff Wilson as running back 71 overall. But I think the name you want is Jeff Wilson. If I draft Elijah Mitchell, I definitely want to handcuff him to someone in this backfield, and I think Jeff Wilson is the guy you want. And my logic for that is because he's the only backup running back on this team who's actually started some games for the 49ers. I mean, Jeff Wilson has actually played 8 really relevant fantasy games over the last 2 seasons, and his stats are really good. In those 8 games, he's had 142 carries for 692 rushing yards, scored 7 rushing touchdowns, caught another 12 passes for another 70 yards, so not crazy valuable there, but another 2 touchdowns, so 9 touchdowns overall in those 8 starts that I'm talking about for Jeff Wilson. So Shanahan knows what he's getting. He knows he can trust him, and if he needs to lean on Jeff Wilson, then he will. And for fantasy purposes, you can trust Jeff Wilson also. In those 8 games, he's scored an average of 17.1 half PPR points per game. That's elite. That's the upside in the 49ers backfield. If Elijah Mitchell ever goes down, he's already starting the season with a bit of a hamstring injury. It's definitely possible. Jeff Wilson would be the player to plug in your lineup, and he is absolutely free in your draft. He's going to be available on the waiver wire in most formats. So definitely target him if you have Elijah Mitchell. And he's an ideal running back 5 or 6 on your roster that you can take in the very final round of your league. I love Jeff Wilson Jr. the most as the backup to own in San Francisco. So those are my top 5 must-draft sleepers for this season. I have Kenny Gainwell at the top. He's my running back 34. Then Isaih Pacheco, my running back 35. Followed by Rachaad White, my running back 38. Zamir White is my running back 43. And Jeff Wilson Jr. is my running back 47. All of these players are going for a heavy discount, and they are definitely sleepers. Let's hope they stay asleep. But on draft day, don't be afraid to reach on them, because odds are other players know about them too. And you need to grab those running backs like Kenny Gainwell and Isaih Pacheco at the end of your draft, because having these late round picks that hit as top 20 running backs at the end of the season is how you win your league. This is what you're looking for. These are the players that win you championships at the end of your draft. So hope you can get them. I'm definitely targeting them. And that's going to wrap up this video. If you enjoyed, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. And if you want to purchase my draft guide, my top 200 rankings overall, you can find that on Patreon at the link below in the description. But there is some news for my subscriber league. One team has actually needed to drop out. Unfortunately, we are back down to 9. So we need another fill-in. If you are interested, then send me an email at niceandblunt@gmail.com and lock up that 10th roster spot. I hope to see you there in my inbox, but I will see you in the next video. My name is Adam Riancho, and thank you for watching Nice and Blunt. Shh.